Welcome to the next set of video notes. In this section, we're going to look at how to perform a confidence interval for the difference between two proportions. So this is, again, if you're trying to compare information from men and women or other groups that you may want to do these comparisons for. So here is the equation to calculate the confidence interval. So it's the difference. So we're going to take the sample proportion for the first group and subtract the sample proportion for the second group. Then we're going to add and subtract the z alpha over 2 times that big huge standard deviation equation that I'm not going to read out loud. Okay, again, this second half after the plus minus, the z-score and the standard deviation, that's called the margin of error. Okay, so an example, the Gallup organization surveyed 1,100 adult Americans from May 6th through 9th, 2002, and conducted an independent survey of 1,100 adult Americans from May 8th through 11th, 2014. In both surveys, they asked the following. Right now, do you believe the state of moral values in the country as a whole is getting better or getting worse? The survey conducted in 2014 resulted in 816 adults responding that the state of moral values is getting worse. The survey conducted in 2002 resulted in 737 adults responding that the state of moral values is getting worse. Construct and interpret a 90% confidence interval for the difference between the proportions that responded worse from 2014 to 2002. So important pieces of information in this problem. My sample sizes for both of my groups, they surveyed 1,100 people in 2002 and they sampled 1,100 people in 2014. Other pieces of important information is how many people said that it was getting worse in 2014, and that was 816. 737 said it was worse in 2002. We're doing a 90% confidence interval. And finally, 2014 to 2002, that identifies for me what is my P1 hat and what is my P2 hat. So whatever it says first, 2014, that's going to be my P1 hat. 2002, that's going to be my P2 hat. Okay, so this tells me how I'm going to set up that equation. So the important numbers, again, listed out with the correct symbol next to each of them. And I don't have animations, apparently. I really thought I did. So to do this confidence interval, we're going to go to Stat, we're going to go to Tests, and we're going to go to letter B, which is a 2 prop z int. Stands for two proportions, and we're calculating a interval using a z-score. So my x1 is 816 because that's the number from 2014. My n1 is 1,100. x2, I apologize, this right here, this number right here should be x2. I missed that. I will fix that before I post these. x2 is 737. N2 is 1,100, and our C level or confidence level is 0.9. So we end up with 0.03996 and 0.10368 for the two bounds of our confidence interval. So the interpretation we're going to say is, and I'm missing a sentence in here as well, we are 90% confident that the difference in the proportion of Americans that said the state of moral values in America is getting worse between 2014 and 2002 is between 0.03996 and 0.10368. This indicates that the proportion of people who believe the state of moral values in America is getting worse is larger in 2014 than it was in 2002. So let's talk about this last statement that I just made. When we're looking at the difference between two proportions or even two means, as we're going to look at next, an additional statement can be made from our final confidence interval. If both values of the interval are positive, this indicates that our P1, our first population proportions or means, is larger than the second group because we're taking P1 minus P2. So if we're ending up with positive numbers for both of those, that means P1 has to be bigger than P2. If both of the values are negative, this indicates that the first population proportion or mean is smaller than the second. Because if you take P1 minus P2 and you always end up with a negative value, that means P2 has to be bigger than P1. And then if one value is negative and one value is positive, that means 0 is in the interval. We have a negative and we have a positive, so 0 is somewhere in there. That means there is a chance that there is no difference between the two values. So if we see 0, we can say there may not be any difference between these two values. And that is a two-population confidence interval.